Hi everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to Currently Wearing podcast. Today I would like to share with you an interview with Sascha Gianella. She runs Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain. She lives in Switzerland and is originally from Australia. She is a mother of two. She has an amazing fashion sense and personal style. She is a beautiful person inside out, and that's why I chose her for one of my podcasts, because I think that she has a lot to share with us. And right now she's also working on a book about Swiss artists. Besides that, we will also talk about internet and its impact on artists and modern art. So let's dive in, and if you like this interview, please subscribe to my channel. Can you introduce Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain to our readers?
Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain stands for Sascha Gianella Contemporary Art in French, which I call SCAC, which is an absolutely awful name today, but I abbreviate it because it's such a long name. But actually, it's more than a business to me. It's actually a period of my life. For the last 2 decades, so 20 years, I've done a multitude of things in contemporary art. I have managed contemporary art galleries. I have volunteered in museums with gallery associations. I have independently curated exhibitions in China, Korea, the US, Australia, the UK. I have commissioned artists from the outback in Australia to produce a multitude of works for one of the largest cruise ships in the world as an advisor, and I advise private clients around the world on purchase of art. I mostly work with emerging artists. That's something I've also done. But in the last few years, I've had many exhibitions, and due to having children, I've been focusing on writing a book. And the book is about Swiss artists and their trajectories to success. So how they've started out in their career and how they've got to where they wanted. So it's basically about success, but I do have a background in sociology. And so I wanted to actually look at the statistics and interview around 200 or more artists and analyse the statistics and see if there's anything common, because one of the great changes that I've seen in the last 20 years is the presence of the internet. So I think opportunities for visual artists now are so great that that's one of the significant changes. But that's what I think. So that's why I'm interviewing people, to actually see what they say, and it's not just my opinion. Along with that, because I'm interviewing people, I have set up an online community to share the information for visual artists only. That's a Facebook group, and every interview is a blog post. And so that's published every 2 weeks with a new interview. And snippets of that information that's relevant to artists' professional practice goes in the Facebook group. And then, just to add another complexity, every artist that I interview, I select 2 or 3 or maybe a few more works of theirs, and I sell them through my website. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's such a minefield. The Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain is a period of my life rather than just a business.
What lessons did you learn along the way, considering art, artists, and taste of the public?
Well, the positive thing I've learned is that it's I've actually always worked in a booming industry. Contemporary art has been booming since I started, and it's not fading away. It's actually getting stronger and stronger. So from an opportunity perspective, that's fantastic for me. More of on a negative note is it's not something that's a very easy job. It's not necessarily easy to make money. It is notorious for that. I'm determined to change those rules. That's status quo, but no. So but one thing I have noticed that's been a significant change over the years is it's really, as I said it before, it's the presence of the internet that's changed everything, and it's giving people more of an opportunity to be an artist, not needing a gallery to present their work or show their work. They can do that on Instagram and Facebook. There's just so much more opportunity. So actually there are a lot of artists out there now. Or maybe there's the same, but I actually think there's more because people feel comfortable to put their work out there.
What, according to your opinion, makes Swiss artists different from others?
Well, I have been thinking about this a little bit because it's the subject that I've been studying, but I actually haven't originally found Swiss artists to be any different to any others, but because in the sense of that artists today are very international. But saying that, being an Australian myself, Australian artists do travel, but Swiss artists really travel because living in the centre of Europe, a lot of them have studied at Goldsmiths College in London, others are in Berlin, or others, another artist that I work with, she spends her time between Berlin and London. And I don't know whether it's all artists can do that, but I find that Swiss artists are extremely flexible in terms of travelling. They're also flexible in terms of language because there's 4 national languages, 3 of which are actually spoken widely, the German, French and Italian. And there's rarely a Swiss that can't speak a little bit of English. So the language skills and the fact that they're in such a central part of Europe means that they're very international artists.
Where would you like to see Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain in 5 years?
Over the last 20 years, as you've just heard, I have adapted myself to many different situations and remodeled what I do just to adapt and to go with the way that the wind's blowing. So it's quite possible that will happen again. I'll be reinventing myself in the next 5 years. But my goal at the moment is to keep going with this online presence that I have. And I am in the process of setting up an automated model for unrepresented and underrepresented artists to be able to connect with me and my website and to be able to use it as a tool for professional practice. Now that sounds quite conceptual, but the sort of things they can do is they can log on as a member and they can download any information about art promotion, marketing, how to price their work, how to approach galleries, and they can download resources, they can connect to the community, they can ask each other how to do this and that. But I'd really like it to be probably the number one international portal for emerging artists, and I'd like my book to be published and in the 3 of the 4 national languages in Switzerland include, and English.
Is your website also in French?
No, it's not in French. It's in English because as it's just me working on everything, I just find it quicker and easier in the limited time that I have, being a mother, to do everything in English. Saying that, my blog posts, when I have interviewed an artist that is native language is in German or in French, there's always an English version and a French version. And if they're filmed, then there is the actual interview is filmed in French. So no, but the rest of my website, my community online, the Facebook group, all of that is only in English. So it actually has a very international audience rather than just a Swiss audience.
And the services that you offer, is it for free? And if it is for free, why?
I do offer a lot for free, not everything, but one of the things I do offer for free is guides, how-to guides. So the first freebie that I ever wrote for artists was how to price your work. And that guide had 5 different ways that they could price their work, because that's one of the questions I get asked the most by an emerging artist. I'm in the process now of writing another guide, and that is on how to build an artist audience, because it's quite specific. So when we say list building, an artist mailing list is very specific depending on who they're trying to sell to or appeal to. So that might include collectors, it might include clients, it might include museum directors. So I actually am providing a free guide on how they can put that together. And from there up, I do consultations one-on-one, which is strategic artist. It can be anything to do with their career, but normally we just discuss what they need to focus on. So, for example, that might be we apply for grants and I help them do that, or they might want to talk about, I had a photographer recently who wanted to talk about editioning his work. He didn't understand it. So that's an hourly rate. And then I do short course. So a short course might be something like 49 Swiss francs, and that might go for 5 mornings, which will be just like an hour, and you can download that a day for a week. And I'm in the process at the moment of designing another course, which is basically about getting your art house in order. And so that is about getting your CV done, how to write an artist statement, how to put your client list together, how to get your website up to date, and all the things that you'll need to do to be ready to start promoting and to be more strategic. And then once that's in order, I do have a paid course, however, of actually discussing the strategies and how to be strategic to move forward towards self-representation. So when I say self-representation, a lot of the artists I work with either don't have a gallery or don't want a gallery. And so they basically represent themselves. They're marketing their own work. There's no gallery that's selling for them. So I have a course that gives them the tools of how to do that.
With your experience as an art curator, what would you advise someone who wants to build the same career?
Funny, I have thought about this not so long ago. I would advise them to volunteer, because in this industry that's quite standard. When I started, no one volunteered, so it was easy for me to volunteer into places. What's quite common over in Europe and the UK and the US are internships, paid and non-paid, and unfortunately the industry does abuse those a little bit. They'll often get you in for 6 months with no intention of giving you a job, and then they'll move you out. But I do still think that that's a very good way to start to learn about the different areas that you might want to live in, work in within the industry without having to commit yourself to it, to a job either. But I would say one thing I wish I had thought about a little bit more when I was 19 and I'd started, or whenever, and was that to go for the top. Don't just see a gallery down the road and say, oh, look, I might go and, work in that gallery. If you want to work in a museum environment, go for the biggest contemporary museum that you can go to and try and volunteer there, because you will be around influential people. And the more influential people you become friends with and get to know, the more opportunities that you'll be presented with. If you're in a local gallery that really doesn't mix with the industry, you'll have no more opportunity presented to you. But the thing is, you go for the top. When I was at university, what I did is I got a guide of the Australian Commercial Galleries Association, and these were all the best commercial galleries in Australia, and they were all members of this association. And what I did is I went alphabetically and I wrote to every single one of them, starting at A, and I asked them if I could volunteer in their gallery for a couple of weeks. Every single one of them said yes. I sent myself to Melbourne, to Canberra, to Sydney, and every single one of them I was offered a job in. But what I should have done, instead of going from A, I should have actually gone and said, which one are the best ones in here to volunteer at? Because then I would have been at the top, actually. Even if it was free and I may not have liked it and I may not have got a job, I would have actually seen how the best in the business do what they do. And instead, I actually ended up taking the job at Access Contemporary Art Gallery, which is still under A. It ended up being the best experience of my life, because this woman that I worked for, although she was quite tough, she has scruples. She's an amazing lady, and she's still in it after 30 years today. Only last year she asked me to actually write an excerpt for a book about her 30 years in business, and I did it with pleasure, because a lot of what I've learned today about how to treat artists came from her. So I was lucky to fall upon a good egg. But it was also because I did my field work. I went out and volunteered for many, many different people and thought, okay, this is the one I choose. But my advice to someone who's starting out is to put in the groundwork, to give yourself freely, to meet people, but to do it with the best.
And the last question, which I really find very interesting, is how do you manage it all? Because you have 2 small boys and you have a husband and you're also an independent business owner. So how do you do it all?
I've always had an independent business. In fact, when I was in Australia pre-children and pre-marriage, I had 2 businesses that did very well. Since I've moved to Switzerland and I had children, I've got what I call my curatorial and advisory services company, Sascha Gianella Art Contemporain. But it's actually quite hard. I work at lunchtime when my littlest one sleeps, and I work late at night. And the problem with working in something that I'm obviously very passionate about is that I just keep working and working and working, even when I'm really tired. And when you work when you're tired, everything takes longer, which is one of the reasons I don't like to do everything in French, because that takes me even longer. But then you make mistakes, and often I have to invoice people at midnight, and you can make a lot of mistakes that way. So it's a juggle. But saying that, I've always worked for myself. So therefore, for me, I've always had a business, but I've also had salaried positions alongside of those companies and worked 2 or 3 jobs at once. But it's just something I find I don't get distracted from being able to concentrate on a business. That's probably the first thing. The other thing is I've also chose a career which is quite symbiotic with having a family. No one cares if I work in my pajamas. No one cares if I turn up to a client meeting with my children. Artists end up being your friends. Your clients end up being your friends. They pick you because they like you. And so it's a lifestyle type of job. It's a lifestyle business. Working in art is a lifestyle, and that's what I like about it. So it sort of is part of my life rather than being, I don't go to the office, I go at home. So I can work whenever I want, really, but it's definitely a juggle. Saying that, I think that being a mother has actually presented me with opportunities as well, because I would never have had to rethink the way I work if I hadn't been a mother. So I never would have written this book if I hadn't been a mother, because I decided to write it specifically to keep my foot in the door with artists while logistically being at home. Because before children, I had a lot of exhibitions and I was going around to different art fairs all around Europe. And physically, once I had children, I couldn't do that anymore, which is one of the reasons I never took on a gallery after children, is because you need to physically be there. And a gallery is like having another child or another 40 children. But that's why I said, why don't I write a book? Because it'll keep me in front of artists. So the industry will still know I'm there, but logistically I can do it at night. I can do my interviews on Skype, and without actually leaving home. So it's been advantageous, but I have to rethink all the time about how to do things.
Sascha, thank you very much. It was really interesting, and I'm sure my readers also find it very helpful, interesting, and original interview. I will also leave the link to your website under the podcast and under the article, so they can have a look and they can learn more about you. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.
Thank you so much, Miri. Actually, something I was thinking about saying to you is that you are a fashion blogger. Would you call yourself a fashion blogger, or would you call yourself a fashion, beauty, lifestyle blogger? Yeah, because you do so many different things. It's true. But I was thinking, if you want to see fashion, I work in a good industry for it, because I find it really inspiring going to a lot of these art fairs and galleries and seeing the way people are dressed. I love that. A lot of these people are at the forefront of fashion. Quite eclectic, but that's my style. No, anyway, just thank you so much. Hi artists, it's Sascha Gianella. If there is one question that artists have asked me the most during my past 20 years as a curator, advisor and gallerist, it would be, how do I price my work? What do I sell it for? So I've written a free guide that you can download by clicking on the link below that explains my own personal method that I've been using for the last 20 years, plus 3 other methods that are a little bit different that artists I know and work with use. And if you have a different method, I would love to know what it is. So you can either leave a message in the comments below, or you can send me a message at hello@sgac.co.